Thanks for coming to this session. I'm Derek T. Dingle. I'm the Editor Chief of Black Enterprise. And the reason we're here is to find ways to access the global education market, which stands at $4.4 trillion, which is a real opportunity for entrepreneurs. And the reason we're also here is to discover how entrepreneurs, especially those disruptors in technology, can create inventive products and services to serve that market. We, however, believe that you can do well while doing good. So we want to take advantage of the business minds in this room to help develop solutions to narrow the K-12 achievement gap among African American students, as well as promote access to those seeking post-secondary education pursuits. Why? We must find solutions to a crisis that affects every attendee at this conference. How we can prepare America's students for a hyper-competitive, tech-driven, and globally focused 21st century. The answers to that question will ultimately determine the advancement of our businesses, including yours, as well as the future viability of our communities. Since the inception of Black Enterprise, education has been one of our core tenets. And today, our multi-platform media enterprise is even more committed to that thrust. As we celebrate the 60th anniversary of the Brown versus Board of Education decision, in which the Supreme Court put an end to separate but unequal access to education, we believe that students of color, we need to serve them in such a way that they continue to gain ground instead of lose ground as we go forward. We all know the statistics about the graduation rates, about the access to college, and we can reverse that through entrepreneurial and business models and working with the education community. So we're going to move forward with our panel. But first, I want to tell you why we've joined forces with our sponsor, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It's to take immediate corrective action through our symposium series. This is the 8th of such forum. In fact, last year we were here talking about how to use technology to impact education. But I can tell you that working with the Gates Foundation has been both enlightening and empowering as we witnessed the passion and dedication that their team has displayed in completing a shared mission to ensure that every single student, regardless of race or circumstance, has the opportunity to gain a high-quality education and become productive contributors to our society. So today's forum, in fact, was made possible with the funding as well as the considerable involvement and intellectual capital of the Gates Foundation. And before we get started, let's give the Gates Foundation a round of applause. They have also been extremely important in the development of our next stage of our mission, which is Be Smart. It's our multi-platform program to bring together different stakeholders to address such issues as K-12 and post-secondary education, STEM, public policy, and business solutions. We want to gain your insights, track your activities, and most important, gain your commitment to improve academic lives of our kids. So in today's session, how entrepreneurs can profit by educating our children in more ways than one. You will hear from entrepreneurs who have applied business principles and in some cases collaborated with educators to devise such solutions. So before I introduce our moderator, who is going to start this panel, I want to let you know that the following conversation will be on the internet as well as in social media. Our Black Enterprise team will be live tweeting what we share here in order to reach, influence, and energize potentially thousands of other stakeholders who have been invited to follow today's deliberation using the hashtag BeSmart. That's B-E, SMART. So The conversation is going to start with Will Lucas, who is going to moderate the session. And Will is the CEO of Classana. And Classana is an educational resource discovery engine, which was started in 2012. He is also one of the few young minority TEDx organizers in the United States, curating TEDx Toledo. NBC News named Will the Griot at number 2 in the top 10 blacks in tech to look out for in 2013. He was also listed in Business Insider among the 25 most influential African Americans in tech in 2013, the 46 and among the 46 most important African Americans in technology in 2014. He was also named co-chair of President Obama's Ohio Small Business Committee during the 2012 campaign cycle, and he was recently, and last year he was appointed a state commissioner serving on the Ohio Casino Control Commission by Ohio Governor John Kasich. So you see we brought out heavy ammunition as our moderator, who's going to lead this panel into an engaging and enlightening discussion that's going to make a difference for your businesses as well as our communities and our society at large. So ladies and gentlemen, Will Lucas.
Thank you. I'd like to start the session just so you know, towards the end we will have time for Q&A. So please, as we're going along in the conversation, if you have questions, go ahead and jot them down so you remember them when we get towards the end. We'll definitely open up time for you guys to present questions to this fantastic team of people who will come to talk about education and how we can make money from education. So just kind of give you an overall landscape of the educational market. The global educational market stands at $4.4 trillion. It's a real opportunity for innovative companies, and at the same time, entrepreneurs can develop solutions that can help close the K-12 achievement gap among African Americans. And in an effort to promote, these efforts, we see, educational post-secondary pursuits in innovative spaces. So in this panel, we've identified entrepreneurs, a good number of who have employed technology, that have created inventive products and services to serve the educational market. These panelists will reveal how businesses and the educational community can work together to positively impact our children's education while meeting their company's market share and revenue growth objectives. So what I'll do is I'm going to introduce and give a short bio of each individual panelist, and then I'm going to give them an opportunity to talk a little bit about their work on their own, and then I'll introduce the next panelist. So Mr. Ron Busby, who's sitting right next to me, is the president and CEO of U.S. Black Chambers Incorporated. Mr. Busby is a former business owner, and he has been recognized as one of the nation's best CEOs. He grew his first company, U.S. Super Clean, from a $150,000 business to over $15 million in revenue in 10 years. Early in his career, Super Clean was recognized as the largest black-owned janitorial firm in the country. Mr. Busby. So if you could, before I introduce the next two panelists, talk a little bit about your work and why this conversation today is important to you.
Thank you, and thank you so much to the rest of the panel, to Derek for having us, and to all of the audience. As he talked about there being a $4 trillion opportunity in education, I really want us to think about that. Because there are so many markets that are out there that we're not tapped into. Education is one in which we have the opportunity to get in front of. We talk a lot about the statistics of reference of African Americans. There are more African Americans that are dropping out of high school at an alarming rate. The average fourth grader in the state of New Mexico at 85% cannot read at the fourth grade level. All the HBCUs combined, and I'm a graduate of two, Florida A&M undergrad, Clark Atlanta University Graduate School. But the fact is, hold on, the fact is there will be more African Americans that graduate from one university, the University of Phoenix, than all the HBCUs combined. And the reason why that's important is because they have figured out the niche. They have figured out the way in which people are now being educated, being marketed to, and graduating at a much higher rate in the HBCU market. There are more African Americans that are now in elementary and K school that don't see African American teachers. So they don't feel like there's a home for them. They don't see their faces there. So we're going to talk a little bit this afternoon about how we as entrepreneurs can tap into that market, and more importantly, improve the education within our own communities, and more importantly, as a single father of 2 young men, our own homes and our own students. Thank you.
Thank you. And as an author, social entrepreneur, and chief popsicle of Feverish Ice Cream and Gourmet Pops, Felicia Hatcher has been honored by the White House as one of the top 100 entrepreneurs under 30, Black Enterprise Innovator of the Week in Essence Magazine Tech Master. Hatcher has been featured on the NBC Today show, NPR, among others. Talk a little bit about why this conversation is important for you.
Okay, so thank you so much for having me here. First of all, I think I brought some of that rainy weather with me from South Florida. But as an entrepreneur based in South Florida, I think our community, we're in a state of emergency when it comes to being left behind in technology, and also the ecosystems that are starting to be built in major cities outside of the Bay Area. Miami is where I started my business, where we've been based, where I grew up. But when we're talking about the access to technology, and then even just promoting of entrepreneurship opportunities in South Florida, we're not a part of the conversations, we're not at the table. And that was a problem that my husband and I were saying we have to figure out something to create to, one, just give our people context in order to actually take advantage of the opportunities, because that was really the big issue in South Florida. We have a huge population of Hispanics, so a lot of it kind of goes towards focusing on Latin America. But we have 13 targeted urban areas in South Florida with millions of African American teens and adults that those could essentially help solve the brain drain problem that's in South Florida. So we wanted to do something about that, and that's what we started Code Fever, which is a program that teaches programming skills, but then also merges it with entrepreneurship training, because we found, all right, everyone's talking about STEM, it's great and everything, but a lot of our people don't know what STEM means. Like, what is it and what do we do with it? But furthermore, our kids need to learn how to take those tools, accelerate the learning, but then actually be able to profit off of the skills that they learn, in a very short time, and not until they graduate high school or graduate college. So it's essentially the program that we started, but that's also serving as a pipeline for talent for our company, but then also for other African American startups that we've partnered with to get them the talent that they need, but fostering that talent in our community.
Fantastic. Thank you, Felicia. Kalima Preforce is the co-founder of Kino Labs, an educational innovation startup that works closely with STEM-related initiatives to close that diversity gap in K-12 education. And in the year 2000, his younger brother was shot and killed behind their childhood elementary school, inspiring Kalima to form a lifelong commitment to transforming the lives of high-potential youth towards mindfulness of their path and purpose. Welcome, Kalima. Talk a little bit about, obviously, the death of your brother had a huge impact. Using that, kind of wind in your wings, what does the educational scene look like for you? What does the future look like moving forward as we continue to move into more innovative technological perspectives?
Sure. Well, first, very happy to be here, and very happy that so many faces in the room. When my brother turned 18, he aged out of the group home system. He and I both grew up in group homes, and I was 20 years old and just started college. I spent some time in India, came back, and finally wanted to start my freshman year in college. And it was interesting because at the time, my focus was to be an international lawyer. I wanted to just be this hotshot lawyer, traveling around the world. I mean, what really is international law? I mean, really. So governments just making it up as they go along. And so it's fun. It's sort of the badlands of law. But I wanted to work with the UN, date UN translators, and then eventually maybe because of my background in tech, when I started a tech company when I was 16, I wanted to teach girls in South Africa how to code. And then what happened with my brother just changed the direction of my life. And because the question was that, the question that I think a lot of people were trying to hone in on was, you know, why was he shot and killed behind our old elementary school? And what was it about both of our lives that made it so that me as the older brother is burying him, the younger brother? And the question of education kept coming up. You know, people kept talking about schools, and they kept talking about what were some of the formative things that happened in his life and my life that transformed our lives so that we could be who we are. And so that's how my approach changed, to not only help my brother, young people like my brother, but also those who killed my brother. And I think that's the thing about education and learning innovation. I know that the title is how to profit from it. Well, I perceive myself as a social entrepreneur, and social entrepreneurship is, it's a phrase that's tossed around, but
Buzz phrase,
yeah, it's one of those buzz phrases. But a friend of mine who works at Wikimedia, she said that when they go over the biographies of social entrepreneurs, there's not really a whole lot of social in it, right? That social entrepreneurs are really justice entrepreneurs. That's our business. It's how to create impact and how to make sure that impact is sustainable. And so, and that's been my approach going into education since that moment.
Fantastic. Great to hear your story. I'd like to dig into a little bit more of the why. You guys, each have scratched the surface on why this is important. And specifically, I'd like to come from an angle of technology and non-technology, because I think what's important is to lay a foundation that not everybody's going to be an app developer. So I think that it's important that we talk about, innovative approaches, and whether it's just an alternative to traditional means of education, to be able to educate, as entrepreneurs, our children, to be able to open doors of opportunity for them in just innovative ways, in ways that traditional paths may not have gotten us. So Felicia, I'd like to start off with you. And we all come from different types of environments and different types of neighborhoods and backgrounds, but particularly you in Florida, what was it about your community? Because I don't think you started off as a technology entrepreneur.
No.
And so what was it about your environment that said, there's something to this technology that can bring these kids out of the situation that they're in?
Yeah, so it's really the kids that we work with. So, everyone knows or became familiar with last year Rachel Jeantel, right? And she kind of became the poster child of what Miami's education system represents. And the unfortunate part of that is most people thought that she was an anomaly. And no, there are tons of kids like that in our community. And Carroll City is one of those areas that's a focus of our program, because we need to also change the narrative. Because while we didn't think she articulated as well as she should.
This is the girl in Trayvon Martin.
Right, exactly. But there are a lot of skills that she brought to the table, especially being trilingual. Thank you. Right? So with our focus as entrepreneurs and owning a food business, our end goal, we wanted to, our beginning goal was to train kids so that they can actually start creating food tech companies that we could benefit from a feverish standpoint. Which was a lofty goal, because then we were like, all right, but they don't even understand what coding is. So we needed to take a few steps back. And then even once we started our program, the kids that we were working with didn't know where the backspace was, right? So, it's hard to kind of throw around coding when you still need to kind of go back and do basic computer training. But the opportunity, again, was so huge in our community, but we wanted to make sure as entrepreneurs and contributing back to our community that we help change the narrative of the kids that we serve, especially starting with the kids that we were employing, which were from the same areas that the Rachel Jeantels were from.
Certainly, and I think it's interesting that you bring up the Rachel Jeantel, because like you mentioned, she was perceived to be X. Right. But she had a whole lot of other skills that may not have come across on this stand. I think it's important, Ryan, I'd like you to speak to this. You have a diverse background in corporate America. And Bill Gates said something I think it was last year actually. He increasingly champions the idea of skills over degrees. And, you know, it's not so much that, you know, we need to hire people because they have their MBA or that they even have their bachelor's, but if they have certain skills that add value to their business, those are the candidates we should be looking at. Now, how, and with your experience in corporate America, how does that person who doesn't have that degree or doesn't speak in, you know, in such a professional language, but has certain things that they can bring to the table and add value, how do you think that's perceived in the business community, and what does it take to get over that leap to where we start to look at the other things that this person may bring to the table?
Great question, because I get the opportunity to speak in a lot of high schools and colleges to black students, and a lot of them say, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur. That's the first conversation that they have. I'm coming out of high school and I want to open up a business. And I typically tell them, relax. The majority of small businesses are going to fail within the first year. The facts are 90% of small businesses fail, especially African American small businesses fail within the first 5 years. So here you are, a 19, 20-year-old kid, no credit. Typically, you're going to use your parents' name, going to use their credit worthiness, their ability to be able to start your own business, and you're going to fail. So now you're going to mess up your parents' credit, your ability to start a new firm. And so I tell them, it would be better suited for you to find a business that's doing exactly what you think you want to do. I had the opportunity to start a business, and I'll kind of get there. First off, my mother was a teacher, and my father was a janitor. We had a janitorial firm. So every Saturday, I had the opportunity to sit and watch my father do payroll, pay taxes, hire, fire, write proposals, grow his firm. So I understood entrepreneurism, but as you stated, I left like so many of us and said, that's not what I want to do. I want to go into corporate America. I want a C-suite job. I want to be that guy that we see on TV. And after being in corporate America for about 10 years, I realized that to some degree I had hit that glass ceiling. And I was 26 years old. I was working for Coca-Cola, was the vice president. And my boss said, hey, Ron, I want you to go down and partner with Joe and learn everything you could from Joe. Joe was a white guy. He was 56 years old. He had a son in college. And after about 6 months, they called me in and said, Ron, we want you to move into Joe's office. And I said, well, where's Joe going? And they said, well, Joe's going to be reporting to you. And at that point, I decided I needed an exit strategy. I did not want to be Joe at 56 years old reporting to some 27-year-old kid. Most young entrepreneurs don't have that opportunity. The internship programs are no longer there. So I tell them, in so many words, go find a small business that you can really grow from. And what will end up happening in most cases, they will either earn themselves a job or they will create so much value within their company that in the future they can either buy that firm or bring enough of the skills that they've just learned from high school or college to be able to have that firm do substantially more in which they've already done.
I'd like to stay there for a second. William, you can jump in on this. He talked about, you know, he said specifically at that point, the internships aren't there. And I was listening to NPR a couple days ago, and they were talking about, there was this guy championing the idea of free work, which is completely different from an internship. An internship is, you know, you go get coffee, you know, you probably sweep the floor, and you attend meetings and you do minutes and this kind of thing. But free work is when you find somebody who's doing exactly what it is you want to do, and you point out something in there that you think could be better, and you offer to do it for free. And Khalima, I'd like you to jump in here with the idea of, if you take that, and you also take, you know, what Bill Gates is trying to champion with the skill based instead of, you know, just looking at that college degree. What type of opportunities out there for when a parent is looking at their kid and they say, my kid, I don't want the same, you know, limited options for them as, you know, I might have had, you know, when I was coming up in the age. What does the market really look like for people who want to take a non-traditional path?
I understand the focus on skills. Skills are really important. At the same time, we know really why we go to college. We go to college for the networks, right? There's nothing like Harvard's network, Yale's network, Princeton's network.
It's an expensive network.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and that's what we want our kids to be plugged into. That's what we want to be plugged into. So, Dr. Gladwell, he says that poverty is not desperation or even deprivation, that poverty is isolation. And when I moved my company from the East Coast to the West Coast, Silicon Valley, I had this sort of view that what was happening in Palo Alto and Mountain View was stretching across the bay and into Oakland and Berkeley and other places in the East Bay. And what I was surprised to see was that that was not happening. And so, when it comes to the conversation about free work or internships, apprenticeships, there is this really interesting event that happened in Silicon Valley where this young man, I believe he was about 15 or 16 years old, he walked into, it was either an incubator or I think it was AOL, one of those big companies, and he started his company there. So he went into the building. And he was there like during the entire summer. He would sleep over. He would shower there. He would eat there. And no one ever questioned whether he was an employee or not, because this is Silicon Valley culture. And so you see the kid. He has a hoodie, and you say, "Oh, okay, cool. He's probably brilliant. All right, great." And then eventually, he even invited investors to come into this space that he was using and funded his company. Now, that would not have happened if he looked like Trayvon Martin.
No, not at all.
And probably wouldn't even have happened if he was a woman, if he was a young lady. And so the thing that I think is really interesting is that we as entrepreneurs who are in technology, we have to not just focus on sort of the end goal of being able to exit or being able to build lucrative businesses, but being able to create pathways for our young people. That as much as Silicon Valley wants to import talent into Silicon Valley from across seas, that we need to be able to build businesses in Oakland, in St. Louis, in Detroit, in Miami-Dade. And I think that that's where we need to start. We need to start with entrepreneurs who are willing to open their doors. Just open their doors and invite these young people into our offices, into our space, and make them feel like that kid.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think what's important is being entrepreneurs. The reason we become entrepreneurs, and I think in the initial onset, is because we realize that the life that we can live inside of a job is not enough for us as individuals. And when we talk about how entrepreneurs can educate our kids, we have to realize at the same time that the traditional path of education is not enough moving forward. Even today, it's not enough. When you're getting the same type of education as 600 other kids in your school, or 400 or 300 now these days. When I graduated, there were 600 kids in my class, and today that same school has about 300 kids. And so when we're talking about that traditional path, in the context of today and where education is going, it's not enough just to take the traditional path. I'm going to alley that and just allow one of you three to just take that and run with it and see where it goes.
We have one of our members is a tutorial program, online tutorial program, for roughly $40 an hour, anytime, 24/7. You can go online. You can get math, English, Spanish, science, curriculum. For a lot of young people, they go to a class that may have 40, 50 students in there, and they're not getting really the attention that they need. They're not getting that one-on-one development and relationships. And many times, they have the peer pressure from the other students and their friends that say, you don't want to ask a question because that's not cool. You don't want to stay after class because we're getting ready to go hang out. This tutorial program allows them at their own leisure, at their own home, when it's convenient for them and perhaps their parent, to get the skills that they need, to ask the questions that they need. And the success rate is tremendous, and they're making a profit. I think we need to look at education both in the traditional manner, because we do know that now we have charter schools, we have private schools, we have traditional public schools. We just talked about Brown versus Board of Education, but if you look at the statistics, Derek, 85% of white students still go to school with all white students. There's no diversity in
There's a
the classroom.
resegregation, actually.
There's a resegregation. And now, if you have the dollars, you can put your kid where you want him to go. So the opportunity for them to have that network is really not dependent upon where you live anymore, but it's how much money you make. And so we have to be creative in how we train our children.